All right, we are live, baby. I think 10 days in a row, which for me is unprecedented considering, I run a law firm that aggressively litigates on behalf of its clients. Let's go live on Instagram. All right, we are live on Instagram as well. So we are blasting to all channels. Well, welcome back. We do have to make some edits to the camera, but again, my name is Eric Klopper or Attorney Klopper, and I am the president of Intact Global, right? A nonprofit dedicated to ending the forced non-religious genital cutting of children and infants in the United States, right? And in furtherance of that mission, Intact Global is hosting its first conference, March 29 to 31 in Portland, Oregon. And at the conclusion of this conference, on March 31st, we are going to have a press conference in the Courthouse Square of Portland, Oregon, where we will be announcing the filing of our first constitutional lawsuit to challenge the legality of the continued genital cutting of our infant boys on the constitutional grounds of equal protection under the law. See, Oregon's Constitution requires that all children be equally protected under the law. And since it is unlawful to circumcise baby girls, so too should it be unlawful to circumcise baby boys without a pressing medical need. And again, oh, look, that's great. Thank you, Rachel. Great to see you again. I'm stoked that your friend from Seattle is likely going to make it and that she'll be emailing me. That makes me very happy. Buick, great to see you again. You've been catching these streams consistently because you are the man. Ocean Birth, yes, we love our constant streamers. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to modify this guy a little. And you'll be happy to hear that I upgraded my internet, baby. It's going to take a few days for the equipment to come and for my camera to focus. Hello. Do I seem particularly blurry? I'm in Cosmopolis. Sounds like a fictional town, but I do like it. So yeah, welcome to the stream again. And here we are promoting Intact Global's upcoming conference in constitutional litigation, right? It's going to be a historic moment, obviously for the intactivist cause, but this is a social movement that will affect every fabric of our society. And the reason it has continued is because it's so pernicious. It is so personal and pernicious, and addressing it is going to be pretty uncomfortable. It's focusing on the mic. Oh, interesting. Let's see. Is it focusing on me now? It did look pretty blurry. Are we better? Let's see. Why would it focus on the mic? That's just silly. So I'm guessing you guys can still hear me. The mic is out. Here are my eyes. So it's an A6600 camera, which, used to be pretty banging a few years ago. But, I didn't have the time to live stream. And, we're looking like it's, I'm out of focus. This is not good, guys. Let's see if I could change the input stream, right? So we're going to do camera. We're going to mix it up a little and do this one. Let's see if this works. Not even letting me change it at this point. So I guess we're stuck with the blur. But what I'll do is I'll share my screen, and we're gonna minimize my mug anyways. So as stated before, this is gonna be a quick stream, but I'm here to promote Intact Global's upcoming conference, right? And you can go and get your tickets today. It was actually a huge day for the conference. I apologize for why this is still blurry some here, but I don't really know how to fix it in live time. It's because you want it close to the camera. Try that again to refocus. Okay, let's see. Come on, camera. This is me. Can you guys see me? It looks fine in the display, but how are we doing? Do you prefer that angle? Let me know. I could put the camera like right there. See, it looks terrible. I don't know what's going on. It actually looks pretty good in the, well, Why don't I move it significantly closer to me? It's because you went up close to the camera. All right, this is the live stream where we troubleshoot for 60 minutes, right? That is the stream. Let's try this. Is that better? You feel like you're in the action. You put your hand up to the lens. This is the intimate live stream. So I think we're better now. So yeah, welcome to our, the close-up live stream where we talk about Intact Global's upcoming conference. So I met a very dedicated Intactivist in Portland today, and he's calling in all the troops, organizing everybody. The Saving Our Sons, Your Whole Baby. He's got some people from Canada coming down to Portland, Oregon. He's coordinating with my other local volunteers. He's making promotional materials, advertising at the local markets, you name it. I mean, we had a 2.5-hour board meeting yesterday with the other directors of Intact Global. We went over the numbers and we're like, oh, wow, we already have enough for a successful conference, but we could have like a rockin' and rollin' conference, right? Like this could be, well, it will. It is going to be a great time. It's going to be a historic event, and it's going to end with a historic constitutional litigation. We're going to kick that off. And if this is an important movement to you, and it should be, it has permanently impaired and affected 100 million individuals, like on the most personal and intimate level in America, but also their sexual partners and their parents who've been deceived into cutting their children because they weren't given accurate information. Talk about a movement that affects practically everyone in the U.S. and very few people want to address. Well, we're going to have that conversation. We're going to have it now, right? It's going to be great. I'm very pleased about that. Good. It looks better now. Again, I normally don't do it this close up, but we are where we are, and we'll do what we do. Look, we've got Justin coming in from Portland. Great to see you. Original Heller from Orangetown. Good to see you. Also LA. So yeah, as I was saying, this was a banging day for conference ticket sales, conference promotions. This is going to be a very well attended event. I'm very stoked actually. I knew there was a lot of demand for this. It just needed to be executed, and I needed the financial and other freedom to really pull the trigger. Justin, hello. I see you on Instagram. Doesn't sync to my StreamYard, but I got another channel up over here. Anyway, yikes, make it blurry again. Ooh, yeah, you know what? I don't look as good as I used to. It's those very intense long hours for months at a time that really ages a litigator quickly. But, we litigate to win. And that goes for this upcoming constitutional challenge funded by Intact Global, where we will be suing the state of Oregon on constitutional equal protection grounds, arguing that it violates the state constitution to only protect one class of children, which is baby girls, and not extending equal protection under the law to baby boys and to children, right? Every child should be equally protected. And in fact, most state constitutions require that equal protection. And so that's what we're going to be litigating in as many judicial forums as public support allows. So internet, if you support this cause, and I'm telling you, if any cause was made for this one, talk about incredible damage to an incredible number of people that people don't necessarily want to be public about, but is super important and could, prevail, assuming a small percentage of people actually donate, and that could be in the form of a monthly donation to Intact Global. It could be in the form of, donating a skill, liking this video, subscribing to my channel, sharing it on your socials. That's a super easy thing to do, right? You don't have to be, uber billionaire or super wealthy to push it along. Although if you are, get in touch with me directly because I want to talk to you. Right? So anyway, taking a look at the actual conference. So we can get to the conference page if we have the domain intact.global, intact.global/conference. We're going to take a look. We've made some changes to the so you can see it right here. You can see my hand isn't focused, that beautiful finger. I don't know why the focus is so difficult today. But anyway, let's go over to intact.global/conference and see what we're talking about. So any guesses on what has changed since the last 9 live streams with the conference? Any guesses at all? We'll go back to that. I'm just going to go through what the conference is going to entail, March 29 to 31, and then I'll tell you what the changes are. But if anyone guesses it in the chat, I've got a half eye on that. I'll let you know if you're right. So anyway, so in the conference, let me share my screen. Share, because I'm going to work for like another 3 hours after this, because there's a case I really want to like lay it on, and I've got more stamina than opposing counsel in all my cases. It just is what it is. So anyway, the conference is coming up March 29 to 31, right? That's a Saturday through a Monday in Portland, Oregon. So I'm in Los Angeles. It was about a 2-hour flight, super easy. And this will be a historic moment, right? We're going to launch our first constitutional challenge at the end of this. And we're going to talk, both me, the other directors of Intact Global, the other leaders of major intactivist groups. We're going to discuss our plan to end the forced genital cutting of children in the immediate future. And we're not talking like 20, 10, even 5 years, right? We're like, it really kind of depends whether the internet rallies around this, whether you rally around this effort in this movement. And I believe that you can, and there's a lot of ways to do that. But we're going to talk about, okay, what's the immediate action plan for victory? So anyway, we're going to unveil our plan to enforce non-religious genital cutting. We're going to introduce a program where we can all work together to do that, right? And so what's really easy to do, let's say you don't even, let's say you're not there, you can't make it, sign up for the press conference up here. You can register for free. We're going to live stream it, and then we're going to have the whole thing beautifully filmed by three videographers as well. So, and here's the courtyard square that we are going to be, we're going to be filming in. Oh, looks like my girlfriend's making cinnamon rolls. That's epic text. But yeah, here's the here's the courtyard square where we will be announcing the filing of the lawsuit, right? And so we have a permit for that, or I applied for one in December. When I flew up to Portland, Oregon, I spoke with the director of events. She said, no problem. So we're good. And complimentary coffee and croissants will be served. Maybe other drinks as well. We'll see. But yeah, so then the meat of the conference, so to speak, which I guess has many meetings for something of this with this subject, but we're going to have about at least 8 leading lawyers of the movement discussing various legal aspects of how we're going to stop the genital cutting of children. And we're going to have other activists and thought leaders for 2 full days of presentations and, strategy sections and strategic planning. And it's going to be at Portland's Sentinel Hotel, which is a beautiful hotel, a lot of culture, very unique. It's not like a Marriott or Hilton, although we have a room block, which you should use, although, we're going to go through that soon, right? Because, let's say, I've been clicking on this and hearing complaints, but if you click here, book discounted rooms, you go to the link, you share this tab, right? I don't have to read that out loud. So, pick your check-in and your check-out dates. Let's say you arrive Friday and you leave Monday, right? That would be the whole conference. So yeah, this is like the 3rd, 4th, maybe more days in a row. It hasn't worked. So anyway, we'll see what can be done on that. But going back to the conference, it's going to be at the Sentinel Hotel, right? Get your accommodations how you can. It's actually a beautiful hotel. These are just some of the rooms. It's got a lot of culture and character, right? And so that's the Multnomah Whiskey Lounge where the Founders Library is going to be. But it's going to look real. It's going to feel really good. It's going to look really good, both in person and online. And it has Jake's Catering, which is about as high-end hotel catering as you can. And with that room block, if it works, it'll be about the same price as a Marriott or a Hilton, right? It's going to be a historic event. So if you can swing it, you should make it. And so we are going to, and as Rachel said, forgive me if you already said this, but do you have a speaker there of someone that was born intact but circumcised later and had regret? I read about a lot of people when I was pregnant. So here's, it's a great question, Rachel. So this conference is not about the harm of circumcision, right? We're not going to try to convince people that circumcision is bad, right? That, mutilating the sex organs of a child at birth is not good, right? Where that premise is accepted from this conference. The conference is about how do we stop this routine genital amputation of children, right? So, we're not having discussions on, this is why it's bad and why it's better to be intact and why you shouldn't mutilate your infant at birth. And, and all that stuff is good. It's important content. And I'm sure Intact Global will be producing some of that content to a certain extent. But that's not what this conference is for. This conference is how do we synchronize our clocks, decide on an action plan, and execute. And, obviously we already have a huge let's say, initiative ready to go, which is the constitutional litigation. And that complaint is compelling, right? It's persuasive, compelling, well-researched, well-written, team effort from really brilliant individuals. I'm not talking about myself. So anyway, we have many links on the Intact Global server for help. That's for just people who are grieved that they've been wounded as a child, right? So going back to the conference page, and you could go to intact.global. I appreciate it, Young God, bumping for the algo, right? Let's get the algorithm banging. But this is the event, right? And we're going to go through, well, what's actually going to be happening at the conference, right? And so on Saturday morning, we'll start at 8 a.m. We'll open the doors, get coffee, refreshments. I like half of my fluid intake is coffee, right? So, I'll be there, obviously. And then I will open up with a talk. Okay, where are we? Where we're going, right? How do we end this immediately? I'm tired of, having 3,000 baby boys mutilated every single day in this country. It's totally nuts. And the rest of the world doesn't do it. I mean, maybe Israel and the Islam or Muslim world, but, the rest of the secular world doesn't do it. And Christians aren't supposed to circumcise. So don't give me that BS. So we're going to talk about, the future into activism, right? And then Joe McCormick, who's the treasurer of Intact Global, is going to talk about sustaining the movement. And again, I mentioned this in most streams, but it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, circumcision. But we don't have to raise billions of dollars. We probably only have to raise, one couple million, who knows? But we're asymmetric positions, right? Because they're mutilating infants for profit. We're trying to protect children from harm. So, we have truth and justice on our side. We don't need to raise dollar for dollar. We probably need to raise a penny for every dollar that they raise to combat us. But that's still, going to be in the millions of dollars. And so how do we raise the resources of our movement? And again, we don't have to do it all at once, right? If we raise 10 grand a month, we could continue suing Oregon indefinitely. If we raise 20 grand, we could probably sue 2 states. If we raise 50 grand, either my law firm or we start hiring other law firms, which would be preferred, we could start suing like 5 states at once, right? When you are suing 5 states on the constitutionality of such an abjectly cruel and stupid practice, you're going to get the attention of the federal administration, for example, who's already talked about defunding circumcision twice in the last 2 weeks, maybe even a shorter time frame. So it is in the public, awareness that it's totally bizarre, at the very least, that we fund circumcision, let alone, the ritual or routine genital amputation of our children's sex organs. Is totally bizarre and nuts. And so we're going to stop that. Anyway, so Joe's going to talk about, well, how do we raise the resources necessary? Shay's going to talk about how do we recruit the coalition to do that, right? And there's a lot of great examples in history. Shay will be discussing, there's a great one about labor and employee rights in Chicago, where an activist was able to recruit support from an incredible array of interests who all despise each other, or at least neutral, and but they came together for protecting the worker. Well, here we're going to come together for protecting the children, right? Doesn't matter if you're left or right or totally off the spectrum politically or otherwise. If you're here with the intent to protect children from this outrageous type of violence, then we want you there, and we're going to work together, and we're going to make it happen. Will Wong, another Intact Global director, another good friend of mine, will talk about, okay, well, how do we actually build the network? How do we network with individuals with resources? And I don't just mean money, although that's great, but also skills, right? I just connected with a brilliant intactivist in Portland who I could, I love talking with competent people. It's like you say one thing, he remembers, or he or she, this is a he in this instance, remembers and acts on it, and I don't have to like, supervise it any longer. It just is done, right? Because my time is more limited than I would like. But yeah, but how do we get a bunch of those Justins? How do we get a bunch of those Wills? How do we get a bunch of those Peters? How do you get a bunch of those Jessicas, right? We need to recruit these people with skills who are reliable and competent and committed. And we're doing that at Intact Global. And how do we do that on steroids, right? And so Will's going to talk about the actual kind of tech stack on what that looks like. Then we'll have a panel. You can ask the board of directors anything, and we'll break for lunch. And that is the first half of the first day. As Greg says, we'll stop with a comment for a second. Oh, it looks like I can't. There we go. Eric, are you doing opposition research on the judges that these lawsuits are likely to land in front of? Well, one of my, I think my law clerk did opposition, or not. It's not opposition research, but just research on the jurists who may look at this. And Portland is a pretty progressive area. There's not a whole lot of circumcision jurisprudence, right? There's not a whole lot of judges who have opined on the legality or constitutionality of male genital mutilation. So, that's a pretty sparse topic, but we believe that this is a pretty, it's probably better than, I don't mean to throw Alabama under the bus, but they're typically not in front of the social movement train, for example. And maybe, I'm still down to sue them, don't get me wrong, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is Portland marches to their own beat, and we think that there's the best chances there. And I love the comments. Hit like for the algo. Again, we're going back to the page. This is the conference page. We got a bunch of ticket sales, bunch of support today. I'm like, this is going to be an event. Well, it's going to be an event, but it's going to be a successful event. And already we have enough tickets for this to be like an impactful event. Now, I'd love for us to totally sell out, and we're just going to keep going, right? So anyway, the second half, Carter will be joining us, but he's going to save that talk for another day. It's actually Tony Lasquardo is going to be taking this time slot, and he's the director of Intaction, very important intactivist nonprofit. It's also a 501c3, 501c4 actually. And so what they've been able to do is actually get New Hampshire to vote on defunding circumcision from state Medicaid. And what we saw in the United Kingdom, when they defunded circumcision in the 1940s, the rates went practically to zero and they never recovered, certainly 10% or less. And that's what's going to happen in New Hampshire. It's what's happened in other states that defunded it. Oregon, it's defunded and the circumcision rates are low. And so that's a viable strategy in immediately reducing the rate, because parents aren't going to mutilate their children if they have to pay for it. Just how it works. And in the less and a more kind way to look at it is if something is medically funded, you would think that it's healthy, which is not the case, but that's not an unreasonable assumption, right? Which is why a lot of parents cut their children. Anyway, so that's what's going to happen 2 to 2:30. That's going to be Tony Lasquardo. Then Tim Hammond, director of GALDEF, is going to give a talk. And Intact Global funds these equal protection challenges. GALDEF funds this particular Oregon litigation. They pledged $10,000, and if I remember next time, I'll show the big novelty check they gave. And he's going to talk about, what type of challenges does GALDEF also support, right? It's not just equal protection, although they do support that, but I think breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, I think some medical malpractice, like there's a whole host of legal rights that circumcision violates. It's a total aberration in the law. There's absolutely no rational or coherent defense. Well, we've been doing it for a long time. That's literally it. And that is not a good defense. So anyway, so then the next talk is going to be John Geishiker, the executive director of DOC, which is Doctors Opposing Circumcision. He's got a brilliant strategy that really could work and decimate circumcision rates across the United States. And we're the biggest exporter of this psychological and social virus that is, mutilating your infants at birth. And so he's gonna really talk about, okay, well, what's this killing blow, right? And it could work, and even if it doesn't work, it might tip things in our favor. He didn't want to actually release the topic publicly yet, and I understand why. And so you'll get to see it live. So that's a placeholder, but I know what the topic is. It's going to be epic. And if it works, which it could, that we could win like by the end of this year, right? I mean, where we live in political tumultuous times, and it could, since I'm a single issue voter, with crisis comes opportunity, baby. And we have a huge opportunity, and we are not wasting it. So anyway, going back to just some comments here, it seems like John Atkinson said Alabama arrested Brother K for protesting circumcision, probably in a public area, right? Because my understanding is Brother K protests on public areas because that's his constitutional right. So, that might be a good lawsuit. I don't know. My law firm doesn't really have the capacity to do it right now, but maybe something that GALDEF would support. And John's on the board of GALDEF. So, defending, and that was my Harvard lawsuit had elements of that as well, although it was dismissed without due process consideration, which is a whole nother story. And we can get into that in a different stream. But yeah, Alabama is probably liable for the violation of Brother K's civil rights. However, the statute of limitations may have run. So, John, if you see this, let me know what year it was in, and maybe we could even do some, live AI research. Again, with the caveat that this is purely entertainment and not legal counsel, and I can't practice in Alabama anyway. So yeah, let me know. But anyways, going back to the conference, this is the conference page where you should get your ticket. And then we're going to have Michael Abanika, who's a good friend of mine. He runs a litigation firm in Uganda. He's from Uganda, and he has a great network of human rights attorneys who are fighting the genital mutilation of children, also the child marriage, and other, I think, and other practices that are like egregious and hard to believe they exist in 2025, including circumcision, right? The genital mutilation of children. So, but Michael Abanika, we can learn a lot from him. And then we're going to have a panel. We're going to have a panel of all of these individuals who come from different intact-activist groups, right? Because the second day is all litigators. First days, we have the board of Intact Global. Then we have board members and leaders of other intact-activist groups. And then we're going to have a panel of them. The third day, that's where most of the 8 attorneys are going to be giving a talk, right? And so the next day we're going to start off with Zena Sparrow, and he filed a similar challenge that we're filing in Oregon on Monday, March 31st, in, I believe, North Dakota. But he was using the 14th Amendment of the federal Constitution to challenge a state law, which is something you can do, but it's harder to do to sue a state in a federal forum. And there's, some exceptions and exclusions, and this arguably didn't fall in it. It was also like 30 plus years ago, so the society wasn't ready yet. We didn't have the numbers of support and the legitimacy that we do now, right? So now is the time to strike, and we're going to strike big time in Oregon, and then I'd love to scale this up big time, all states, and it's totally doable, but it requires the support of you, internet. So come on, guys, like this stream, share this stream, subscribe to my channel, specifically YouTube, but all the channels, and make it to the conference, right? Because that's going to be where we make the mountain of media to spread our message, to spread the mission, to really say, look, we're doing this. This is not just like, it's all great to make social media content and educate, and that's important, but we're challenging the constitutionality of male genital mutilation, right? If female genital mutilation is illegal, then simple constitutional analysis yields that male genital mutilation is illegal too, right? There is no good faith reason to only protect one class of children from this egregious harm. And the fact that over 100 million men have been harmed in that way doesn't mean that, we shouldn't protect the future boys. It just shows how pressing and how pernicious this problem is. So anyway, as Carlton's, well, we're just going to keep moving on, and then I'll come back to some comments. But Peter Adler is going to go after Zenas, and he's going to talk about the legal causes of action you may have for being circumcised, right? Because it's not just, oh, I've had my right to equal protection violated, which is probably true, but also you have a right to trust your doctor. Your doctor should do what's in your best interest. And if they don't, if they violate that trust to enrich themselves, then you could sue them for fiduciary duty, right? Breach of fiduciary duty. And that could get doctors to stop circumcising real quick, right? You could also sue them for constructive fraud. So essentially you allege, oh, the doctor defrauded me. And the way to rebut that allegation as a doctor is to prove that what they did to you was medically necessary. Now, the kicker is circumcision is by definition medically unnecessary. So it is an impossible allegation to rebut, which means you could win perhaps on summary judgment. Now, it would cost $100,000+ to take that argument the distance, because doctors have lawyers, right? They have malpractice insurers. And, you know, the hospitals might throw their weight behind the doctor as well, even if you sue just the doctor, because if you win against one doctor, you can win against 2 and 3 and 5,000, right? So there's high stakes for these litigation. They cost a lot of money. And unfortunately, the opposition who's mutilating infants, since it's a billion-dollar industry, has a lot more resources than we do. But again, as I said before, we don't need as much as they. We need probably a penny on the dollar. But that's still a lot of dollars. So you should donate to Intact Global or whatever organization you believe is going to do move the mission as far as possible. And if you're uber wealthy, you should donate to all of them, right? Because we're trying to create a coalition between all these nonprofits. We have Brad Kane, who I learned how to litigate under. He's the man. He's also a brilliant strategist, very persuasive, great litigator too. It's where I learned. You know, I was working with a good base, but you know, he really kind of kicked it along, and now we're rocking and rolling at the Klopper Law Firm, baby. So anyway, he's going to talk about messaging, right? And as I say before, Obama says hope, that one. Trump says make America great again, that one. These are very simple. They're vague. They mean different things to different people. Our messaging should probably be we want to protect all children equally, right? We're not getting to the genitals or the blood or the trauma and blah, 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 although those are good things to know and to discuss and to be aware of. But like the top level slogan, protecting all children equally. You know, or some variation thereof, but something simple, easy, few words. Oh yeah, of course I want to protect children. You know, the opposition, we want to not protect children, right? That is what needs to come across, and that's what will come across. You know, if you're trying to mutilate infants in 2025, something's wrong with you. Looks like we got some company. Anyway, now we have Deborah Ishagian, who I met. She's also runs a civil litigation firm in Los Angeles. And she grew up in a conservative Jewish household, more Jewish, you could say, because it's closer to like the scripture of, you know, have menstrual baths and, you know, don't eat pork and don't, you know, do anything fun, right? So that was essentially the mandate. And so she's going to talk about dangers of cultural conditioning as her talk. I'm really looking forward to that talk. And she's going to talk about, because, you know, she grew up in a Jewish household, probably more conservative, certainly, than my household. I know it's hard to believe. And so essentially, she's going to talk about, okay, you know, she was like passive about circumcision, didn't really think a whole lot about it, you know, part of the Jewish fabric. And then when she realized, oh my God, we are literally mutilating our Jewish infants. We are harming our Jewish infants. Talk about being anti-Semitic, right? It is opposed to the interest of Jewish children. And she's very passionate and animated about protecting Jewish boys from harm, as am I, and as we all should be, protecting all children from harm. We shouldn't discriminate on our protections. You know, and I appreciate the irony of me saying that, but you'll have to bear with me for a few years. But the reality is, you know, people from our community were looking at her like two heads. Like, what do you mean you're opposed to circumcision? And she's the one who's actually, you know, based. She actually knows WTF is going on, right? It's like, look, stop mutilating our infants. It's not cool. Like, we could protect our children. We can have a bris shalom, right? Covenant of peace. And it's not overtly sexist, right? Boys and Jewish girls can get their covenant of peace and naming ceremony, and that's great. And it reaffirms community and tradition, and doesn't require severing the flesh of infants and seeing them bleed and squeal, right? Because that's essentially what it is now, and that's not an exaggeration. And then John Silla is going to close out, and he is the president of American Institute of Bisexuality, and he's done great work with AIB, making bisexuality cool, assumed, and normal. You know, the numbers of self-reported bisexuals was probably 1%, not 1 or 2 generations ago. Gen Z was just polled by YouGov; it's 23%, right? And that makes sense considering sexuality is on a spectrum. Most people aren't totally straight or totally gay. They're somewhere in the middle. And so, the newest generation, who's also super opposed to genitally mutilating infants, is also more aware of the spectrum that we all operate in, right? It's not binary. And so he's going to talk about, well, how do we make this cool, assumed, and normal? And then finally, I'll do a final talk, right? This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning of the end, baby. And I really look forward to the whole event. It's going to be great. And it's going to be well filmed. It's going to be well edited. It's going to be well live streamed. And then we're going to have a founders dinner. And I believe that there's only 5 tickets left, right? 22-person dinner. It's pricey, but we want to know, okay, who's willing to put up for this movement? Who's really committed, right? It's $300 a ticket. So yeah, it's pricey, but it's not like, oh, how can I make it, right? And you're going to meet, the major leaders, major lawyers, and I'm hoping maybe some of the plaintiffs will be there. We'll see. But yeah, it's going to be a great event. I picked it very intentionally, and I'm very much looking forward to meeting you there. So yeah, that's the conference. We may shuffle a little things around. Here's the Norma Whiskey Lounge that I was talking about, where the founders dinner is. It's going to be a great event. It's very classy. This, I believe, is the room that we're going to have the dinner in. But yeah, and then on Monday, we are going to be Monday morning, March 31st. That's when we have our press conference, and everyone's going to give a little stump speech, 2 to 5 minutes, right? You want to give a stump speech, you let me know. Eric@klopper.com. That's how you can reach me. And you're going to have to be patient, because after this, I'm going to do work for probably another 2 or 3 hours. And it's Sunday, right? I mean, I don't take days off, but I have this conference coming up, and then I've got a $20 million trial come April 30th, and I'm trying to win that big time, obviously. And I'm throwing everything at that. So we're climbing the mountain here at the Klopper Law Firm. And again, if you're passionate about protecting children from harm, Intact Global, baby, this is the place to be. March 29 to 30 in Portland, Oregon. Get your tickets now. You just click here. There's a few early bird tickets left. We might even keep that price, even if we sell out of the swag bags that come with that. And, you go to Ticket Tailor. When you click on that, you select your tickets, and, get 1, get 2, you name it, right? And, there's only 4 Founders Dinners tickets left. Excuse me. So that's going to sell out soon. And I don't think that they can seat more people. So definitely get your tickets now. Certainly for the Founders Dinner before that sells out. We had a huge day today. Met coordinating multiple local intactivists in Portland who are pushing this and promoting this pretty intensely. So, I wanted to mention, and I sorry for the late mention of this, but at least one, if not one of our donors said, look, we want to give us, actually, I'm confusing different benefits. So Intact Global is willing to donate a conference ticket to any registered nurse or doula who, let's say, is, interested in intactivism or, wants to learn more. So, definitely email me at eric@klopper.com. And we'll get you hooked up with the ticket. You just need to see that you're, actively advising mothers on the advisability of circumcision, because we want you to talk and meet other people. And if you fall in that category, like Rachel Suhu, I know you do, but you can't make it, which is totally understandable. But like people who work in your line of work, if you know anyone in the area of Portland, will comp their ticket, right? Up to probably 5 tickets, I would say. We want obstetric nurses, we want doulas, OBGYNs, urologists, you name it. Because part of our mission at Intact Global is education, right? We don't want to make anyone feel bad, but we do want to protect as many children as we can, and that is one of the more important demographics. So get your free ticket if you're in the early life healthcare field. Other things, thank you, Stephen. I got your text, by the way, and I think maybe we want to give you a stump speech, right? So during the press conference, think about, okay, what do I want to say in 2 to 5 minutes to really kind of impress upon my fellow man and woman how important it is that we stop cutting children. Sorry for missing out on the text. I'm doing as much as I can. Going back to some of the comments, and let me know if I'm still blurry. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. Maybe the autofocus isn't on. Oh, it's spot focus. That's why I can see. I don't know enough about my Sony camera to, fix it live, and I'm going to spare you that experience together. But so I'm taking a look at some comments. How much do parents usually pay to circumcise their sons? Well, I mean, like I said, typically nothing if insurance covers it, right? I mean, there's a small minority who will actually pay for it. So Gregory Malchuk says, Brendan Marotta recognized the judge in the Ford Hospital FGM case as a judge who 20 years earlier dismissed a suit by Spanish speaker Puerto Rican moms giving English circumcision consent forms. So I'm not totally sure I understand what the comment means. So that same judge, Benjamin Friedman, maybe? That sounds familiar. He 20 years earlier dismissed a suit by a Spanish speaker Puerto Rican moms given English circumcision consent forms. So maybe like receiving, let's say, informed consent, not under duress or fraud, but not lack of capacity. What would the exact sense be? Well, I'd have to read the opinion, because when I learned that that federal judge in Michigan dismissed the anti-FGM charge against that Muslim doctor who cut up a baby girl, I was livid, right? I was like, how could that be? But the reality is, now that I'm an attorney, I understand why. And it has nothing to do with how abhorrent it is to cut the genitals of a child without medical need. It has to do with the fact that states have the authority and the pretty much sole authority, limited to some exceptions, female genital mutilation not being an exception, but it's the states who criminalize conduct, not the federal government, right? And the reason that woman got off, the Muslim doctor who's cutting up baby girls, is because it was a federal law she was charged under, and the federal government does not have constitutional authority to outlaw conduct that happens within states. That is left up to states. Now, the reason FBI gets involved if there's a serial killer going across state lines or whatever, and obviously the lines have been blurred since, but the reality is most states don't have authority, or the federal government typically does not have authority to outlaw conduct, certain specific exceptions, and the genital cutting of minors is not recognized as one of them. So yeah, I don't know why he dismissed that lawsuit 20 years ago. I'd have to read it to have any intelligent analysis on it. This is why I say the First Amendment issue is extremely concerning for such an avant-garde movement. Well, obviously Harvard tried to censor me, and the federal courts were very, to the point of, literally throwing my due process out the window, deferential to Harvard. But again, state courts and federal courts, they operate in different systems. And, I think that this movement has gotten I know that it's gotten a lot of credibility, gained an incredible amount of ground. There's no medical authority who's even recommending it anymore, right? It's total. So yeah, obviously First Amendment is important for this movement, but I don't actually see any real risks. I mean, John Atkinson mentioned Brother K got arrested in Alabama, but that is an extreme minority. And obviously that's a very shocking protest, and that, makes sense that, it might trigger some people, but, oh, hello. Is that a cinnamon bun?
Cinnamon roll.
Oh, thank you. I can't share it with my viewers. I appreciate that. Bye. Wow, look at this. Live cinnamon rolls, and it's still warm too. This is going to become an ASMR channel where you watch me eat things and you can hear it, right? Mm. Oh, wow. It's actually really good. So, a few last comments because I want to enjoy my cinnamon roll, and I hope to see you at the conference in Intact Global, baby. Hi, Eric. Big fan. Thanks for all you're doing. Do you think some of the previous upcoming studies, such as the new foregut histology study that shows foreskin nerve density, will help the case? Well, so when you read the complaint, and I encourage everyone to read the complaint once it's filed, it's epic. It really is. It's epic. There's overwhelming medical and legal research that demonstrates just how outrageously harmful it is to circumcise infants, right? It's not a question of fact, right? I mean, yeah, people make money off it, so they do it, but it's pretty obvious that that it's very harmful to children. So yeah, I mean, it's great that we have more studies showing how important this body part is, but it's not really I should say, it's not in dispute, right? So it'll be interesting to see how Oregon responds and who leans on them, right? Because the federal government has shown that they're willing to defund circumcision now. This is the first time I'm teed up with this movement. It's the first time I've ever seen the federal government take the correct position on this. So like, I'm pretty bullish. They might even say, look, we want Oregon to win, right? You never know. So Eric, goat, dude, goat baby. Yeah, goat with the cinnamon roll. Hey, I tried to intervene 2 circumcisions in Turkey. One was unsuccessful. The other is unknown. I'm just getting close because it seems like my spot focus is like a foot from my camera. Well, the reality, and it's also my new ASMR channel. The reality is, you do your best. You're not going to win every one of them. But when we pass laws, we probably won't start in Turkey. We're going to win a lot more. I guess Harvard isn't very smart. Oh, I lost that comment. Give me a second. Here we go. I guess Harvard isn't very smart since they don't see mutilation as wrong. Why did Harvard get upset at your speech? Well, because they have donors who give a lot of money who also mutilate their infants. And so Harvard had to choose between their principles of free speech and free expression and, active conversation on controversial topics and keeping their donors happy. And because they are, they have absolutely no backbone and their priority is raising as much money as possible, they said, look, we're going to sacrifice Klopper and destroy his career and drive his Harvard boss to suicide because we need to make sure that our deep-pocketed donors who are really committed to mutilating infants are happy. That's what happened, right? It is what it is. And, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not my boss, who didn't survive, unfortunately. He was a good friend of mine, my Harvard boss. But now I'm a hardcore litigator, run a very successful law firm, and now we're taking on the state of Oregon, baby. It's going to be the first of many states. So, you do what you got to do. And we're going to wrap up. A few last comments here. And sorry for Instagram. I missed some of your comments, but that's just because it doesn't sync to StreamYard. Do the conference in Albuquerque. I'll be there. Albuquerque, New Mexico, I believe. If we sue New Mexico, then maybe we'll have a conference there, right? Because we want to couple that. But we'll have press conferences in every state we sue. So, it's very possible. I'd have to look at my spreadsheet to see if New Mexico's in the running. Wasn't Harvard founded as a divinity school for uncircumcised Christians? Yes, but things changed, Gregory. Corey, drag them Harvard morally bankrupt cowards. Well, I don't know what exactly to do with that, but let's get back to the point here. This is an Intact Global promotion. So if you get a chance, and you should get a chance, go to our ticketing page. It is Intact Global/conference. And there it is. Get your ticket to Intact Global. We had a great ticketing and promotional day. I was like blown away. My paralegal came over. Now my office is dope. I mean, I still got these terrible curtains behind me, but you can only do so much every day. So yes, thank you, Rachel, for tuning in again. We really appreciate you. This is the clickable link for the conference, so definitely go check it out. And I hope you're getting enough good rest. Don't want to see you burnt out by the end. Well, when the conference is over, I have a major trial to litigate. So there's no rest. I won a huge case last year, and then I was like, oh, I'm gonna take a break. And then I had like an even bigger case, and I was like, oh well, I guess we're doing it, baby. So we'll take a break in probably May. I might take 2 months off, so you'll have to bear with me. Absent whatever I have to do for the Oregon litigation, and that's what I say now. But if we build momentum here, I am going to execute. Right, that is what I do. So. Internet, support Intact Global, come to the conference. I look forward to meeting you there March 29 to 31. Thank you all Intactivists for everything you do. Thank you for joining this live. Definitely get a ticket, intact.global/conference, and I will see you guys there. All right, and I'll see you tomorrow on the next live stream. All right, have a good night, everyone.